My job requires me to travel frequently. I hate traveling. I write travel guidebooks for businessmen who hate to travel, so it's only fitting that I author such a book. It's a pretty easy job, except for the transit portion. First off, for the actual traveling portion of the trip, I often pretend to read Mrs. Mackintosh, My Darling. It's 1,198 pages long and will keep most other travelers from bothering you. Wearing headphones is usually the most effective way to prevent people from talking to you. There isn't any music streaming through the headphones, no. No, I prefer to listen to the glorified silence of blank tapes. I also recommend you bring only what fits in a carry-on bag. Checking your luggage is asking for trouble. Add several travel-sized packets of detergent so you won't fall into the hands of foreign laundries.
Horace Walpole once said that the world is comic to those who think and tragic to those who feel. I think that you might agree that Horace simplifies the world when he says this. Surely both of us think and feel. In terms of what's comic and what's tragic, the world is all mixed up. I mean, I've never understood why serious and funny are considered to be opposites. It's simply a truthful contradiction to me that people's problems are often funny, and at the same time, people are nonetheless sad.
I met a goner in the hospital. He'd only say one thing: Garp. They called him Technical Sergeant Garp. He used to get these bad itches, but his hands were burned, so he couldn't do anything about them.
Poor Garp. That's one crazy name. T.S. Garp. No initials, just T.S.
Where was I? Thank you. He was dying. I wanted the baby. It was a good way to have one without the bother of having a husband around, with legal rights to my body. So one night, when the wounded and maimed were all asleep, I went to him. It didn't take very long, and once was all that was needed. When it was finished, he just said, "Good."
Who's Miriam? She was this woman who was training my son's dog. She was so inappropriately personal. Then I started having erotic dreams about her. It was so strange and embarrassing. But yes, I did sleep with her. Eventually. The sex wasn't even that enjoyable. I don't know. I don't really feel a lot. I see her at least once a week, though. I live there half the time. We have to be careful, though, because she has a son. She's looking for a relationship. She took me to see her mother, who, ironically, didn't approve of me. Everyone approves of O'Leary. I don't know what I would call it. Miriam is so eccentric, and I hadn't had sex in years until I met her. And I'm not the emotional type. She takes every night we spend together so emotionally. She doesn't really fit into my life right now. She talks so much, even in bed. We Learys prefer to be more reserved. And then there's Lisa. I was married to Lisa for 20 years. She'd become a part of the system. My system. Our family has this meld, and she was starting to fit into it. Sometimes it feels like I'm cheating on her, even though she sent the divorce papers months ago. Cheating is not a part of this family. Divorce, maybe. Dating is a stretch, but mistresses? Definitely not. Miriam is the mistress type. Not really mold-fitting. I blame our mother for this family's relationship issues. She left us here to be raised by her grandparents and went off with her many wealthy lovers to skip around the world. In a way, she reminds me of Miriam.
Jenny was smart. I learned the hard way. All men are liars, and I should know because I was one.
Lust makes the best of men behave out of character.
He left me! He threw me over! Me! Can you believe it?
I was sitting in the theater when a soldier sat next to me. It was not my purse that he wanted. His hand began to touch my knee. "Get your stinking hand off me," I said, rather clearly. Several people heard and turned around.
Oh, I never knew what idiots men were until I became a woman.
"Oh, come on," he moaned, as his hand shot quickly under my uniform. He found my thighs tightly locked together.
Oh, you don't even care, do you?
He found his whole arm, from shoulder to wrist, sliced open like a soft melon.
He said I wasn't enough of a woman for him, that I confused him sexually. He said that I was sexually confused. Oh, God, that prick. All he wanted was the novelty of it. He was just showing off for his friends.
I cut cleanly through his insignia and his shirt, cleanly through his skin and his muscles, reaching the bones at the joint of his elbow.
You don't understand. I don't feel like beating the hell out of anyone anymore. I'm a woman.
If I'd wanted to kill him, he told the police later, I'd have sliced his wrists. I'm a nurse. I know how people bleed.
I don't know what women feel like. I don't know what they're supposed to feel like. I just know what I feel.
I just didn't understand the lust of it. And I did not understand how Garp could ever associate that feeling with pleasure, much less affection.
I feel like beating the crap out of him now. But when he was dumping all over me, I just sat there and took it. I even cried. I cried all day. He even called me up and told me that if I was still crying, I was faking myself.
It was in Vienna when we met the prostitutes. I wanted to know whether it degrades them to be wanted in that way, or to be had in that way. Or, I suppose, if they feel it only degrades the men.
All he wanted was a great big leg. Why are men like that?
Why shouldn't it be legal? Why shouldn't a woman be able to do what she wants with her body? If a man pays for it, it's just one more crummy deal.
I think my urologist wants to screw me.
Is $20 a lot of money for it?
I think that's all he ever wanted to do to me. I think he recommended this whole operation just because he wanted to seduce me. But I think he wanted to make me a woman first.
I just don't understand this stinking lust at all.
They're notorious for that, a friend was telling me.
Something frightened me. It wasn't Helen screaming. Duncan wasn't screaming. It wasn't a sound. It was no sound. It was an absence of sound. What disturbed me was that I knew that had a cold that you could hear from 2 rooms away, but there was no sound. Duncan said it best. He said that it was as if his missing right eye wasn't entirely gone. He said, it's as if I can still see out of it sometimes, but it's memory. It's not real what I see. It's the eye that I can still see Walt with. If I could have talked in my last moments, I would have told Helen not to be afraid of the Undertoad. The Undertoad was this strange being that haunted us in moments of danger ever since Walt's death. It surprised me to realize that the Undertoad was no stranger. In fact, it was very familiar. It was as if I had always known it, as if I had grown up with it. In fact, the Undertoad was something like a nurse, a person familiar with death, and trained to make practical responses to pain.
You know, everybody dies.
A man who hated women. He was a hunter.
My parents died.
It was hunting season, or almost hunting season, and nobody thought there was anything wrong about the man with a rifle.
Your father died. Everybody dies.
He shot her.
I'm going to die too.
I caught her before she fell. She never hit the ground. She never said a word. She never knew what happened.
So will you.
I'll tell you who's to blame. It's men, with their filthy, murderous sex. If they can't screw you the way they want to, they'll kill you in 100 ways. No man is a woman's friend.
The thing is to have a life before we die. To live can be a real adventure. Between men and women, only death is shared equally.
So what if there is no life after death? There is life after Garp, believe me. But what if there's just death after death after death after death? Be grateful for small favors. For example, sometimes there's birth after sex. Oh yes. But if you have life, there's hope you'll have energy. And remember, there is always memory. We are obliged to remember everything.